Tēnei te miki, tēnei te miki a koutou katoa. It is of an honour and a privilege here to take you to this beautiful space right here. Not in St Dave's, where I actually sat 5 years ago, right up the back over there. It was at an 8 a.m. Stats 101 lesson, and I'm very surprised that I made it to the 8 a.m. because that is, particularly on a morning like this, it was exactly the same. But it's of an honour and a privilege to highlight such an amazing relationship that we've built and that we're delivering and that we continue to foster and deliver going forward to the future. And it's all for the passion for this place right here. As I said, my name is Trevor Waikawa. I have a privilege to be one of the Whakaki Lake trustee members, as well as a representative of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, where I do some work in terms of land management with them. What I want to highlight today is He Paku Auta, which is He Paku Auta, He Paku Aroa Wai, which is a project that through our relationships and a real acknowledgement to the Centre, Cawthron, Massey University and our wider partners who involved us in this, and bringing our community along together in our hapu, because it's extremely important, because this is our life force, this is our pātaka kai, and it's in our link between this landscape, the hill country, our wetlands, our rivers, our lakes, our forests, and the food that it produces is an intrinsic relationship for us going forward and our ability to act as our own Māoritanga, to manaaki our whānau, our community and our manuhiri. But I'll let this wee video, if this is going to work. Oh, big green button. Sorry, I was looking at the little green button.
Everything that we do with Whakaki Lake is driven by passion. And I think that part of the work that we're doing is to try to re-establish the ownership in the land of the owners in particular. We've got 1,886 on our books. We'd love a day where most of them have come back even for a visit, to have a look to see what we've done, or to participate in a planting day, basically to acknowledge their tūranga waiwai and the care that we've taken with it. And so that's, I think, the vision that was set by Uncle Hookie and the generations before, basically to look after our taonga, our lake, and to prepare it for future generations. I think that's the best thing that we can do.
We are Whakaki, vibrant and thriving. In 2015, many of our Whakaki whānau came together once a month for a whole year to wānanga. We all decided together that we wanted a Whakaki that was vibrant and thriving. We all wanted to see the restoration of our lake, that we continue to work on the revitalisation of the lake and its environs. That became the vision statement for the Whakaki Lake Trust. Kia hoki mai, te mauri o te wai. Our job as responsible trustees is the restoration of our lake and its environs to the best of our abilities. Kia hoki mai, te mauri o te wai. Legally, the 9 of us are required by our trust order to manage Whakaki Lake and its environs that are here tau, B2, L2. We cannot and will not sell our lake and our lands.
Administration is the backbone of the trust, and that's what we do really well. We've developed systems and processes for us to keep all the paperwork in order. Strong relationships with our stakeholders are so important. The trustees need the support of others, and we can't do it by ourselves. We are grateful for the financial support from our funders, Hawke's Bay Regional Council, the Ministry for the Environment for the Freshwater Improvement Fund, and most recently, the Vision Mātauranga funding for scientific research.
But in the long term, yeah, it's about doing right for Mother Earth. Man has done enough damage over these hundreds of thousands of years, and yeah, we need to give back.
So that was just highlighting some of the wider aspects of the Whakaki Lake Trust. Here are our current trustees. Bar one, there was actually a change in there that's in the front right there. That's my father, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year in February. But we as 9 trustees, and with one other MCs, we have mana whenua, and we are kaitaki and guardians of over 600 hectares of wetlands with 1,800 shareholders and representative of our community and our hapu going forward. Again, some of the core highlights, the core values of the trust is, one is Kia ora mai te Māori o Te Wai, which is strongly linked to our project that I'll be discussing soon, but also within that is our protection and restoration mahi in terms of stock exclusion, our riparian retirements with the wetlands, our streams, and also hill country erosion. Moving into our nursery and added tree development, as you see in the video there too. We have a strong education, training and research, which strongly links to this too, but also fundamentally what's a strong part of this is relationship building and engagement, which leads into our succession planning. So which leads into a new era for us, but it's also nothing new what we'd said before, particularly our image on the left here. It's a tikanga set by some of the original founding members of the Whakaki Lake Trust some decades ago. And that's a truly important picture because that includes many representatives from local and regional government, some scientists at the time, but it's really important because it sets the tone for us. They set the tikanga, the practice in terms of that we need to go out there and start building relationships, build relationships for the practical intent of everyone working together to restore the mana and mauri of our lake, the water quality and the food that exists in us, in order for the sustenance of our people and our wider community going forward. So they set the tone for us, and now recently that's our project team right there, representatives from the centre, from Cawthron, Massey, and our wider community, the trust and the community too, which is extremely important going forward. Diving deep into our project now, He Paku Ota, is all around our tuna. We as people from Whakaki, ngā kiri tuna, guardians of our lands, lake and waterlands, wetlands, is extremely to this, our tuna. Our ability to manaaki our whānau and sustain our people is strongly linked to our food resource and our environment, and the changes within that strongly impact and relate to all of that. We use traditional methods to sustain, harvest and resource our tuna, but also with the change in land use impacts has a significant impact on that. Therefore, we must be continuing to research and investigate and build wider relationships in terms of what we're up to. And it's all around this. The relationship with our environment links directly to our people, and the mana we have is manaaki for our whānau and our guests. And some of the most enjoyable things here on the right there is our renowned K-fried tuna. Real similarities to the Kentucky Fried Chicken. Finger licking good, but we have other traditional methods too, which are we called ara on the top left there, which is similar to preserving them over hot embers to be preserved, frozen, and stored for later on too, and some other methods too. But that links strongly to our relationship with our food and our environment and how the impacts are changing that. And it's so important for this, and sitting at the backbone is that the Whakaki Lake Trust, we were fortunate enough to be a part of the Lakes 380 program. So back in 2019, Lakes 380 came back and did an investigation on sediment cores. And these sediment cores are so important that they allow us, they're our history books, our geological history books, our whakapapa. These show the geological history and the impacts and the occurrences of what was happening in the catchment and what has happened in our catchment over hundreds and thousands of years. Now, looking deeper into that, which links directly to our project, is that particularly in the pollen and sediment core, we can tell, and it supports our oral histories and teachings, that the catchment was heavily populated by native forests and vegetations for thousands of years, pre-human and even during Māori settlement. However, over time, continued Māori land use, European settlement, took a drastic change. The forests were removed, our land use practices changed, agricultural and horticultural and pine plantations occurred, and we're very much responsible for that ourselves because we are Māori landowners and land use of the land as well. That is no gripe that our Prime Minister is. However, but when we look into the data, into the sediments, we can see the direct changes. Particularly, we saw that cyanobacteria, the algae and the nutrients, they were all present throughout time. However, the direct link is our land use and the scale and time that all occurred lead us to what we're facing now in terms of cyanobacteria blooms in our lake, which has a strong impact to our tuna, in which we're consuming, which we're eating, which we're preserving, and which is allowing us to sustain our people. So this information of impacts of excess nutrients and cyanobacteria is extremely important. Therefore, the mahi with this kaupapa, by bringing together our mātauranga Māori, our local knowledges in terms of what is the land telling us, what are the signs, and what is the colour of the water, the smell of the water, the clarity, what does it look like in terms of what's happening in the landscape, the erosion of the hills, the removal of our native forest, the integration of pine, the upscaling of agriculture in our own systems. That's all coming together. And in our own mātauranga in terms of the lack of bird life, the lack of native species that are existing around our wetlands, not just in Whakaki. I must say this is quite an issue that's throughout Aotearoa New Zealand. But the essence is it's coupled with strong local, science and national Western perspectives, and that's the key to this too. It's bringing us together. It's bringing us together with new technologies. We're able to share our mātauranga and work with some really cool people, the likes of JP, who's part of the centre, who does some awesome work with us and working alongside a couple of our people too. It's bringing us together, and the important thing is it's going to influence some major things going forward in terms of how we continue to manaaki our whānau by our mahinga kai. If that's going to have any impacts in terms of how we gather our food, when we gather our food, what and where we can eat it, but also how it's going to impact us and what we need to do in terms of the sustainability for our future generations, because that's the key. And in terms of that intent, that is what we're all about. In terms of bringing everyone together, Western perspectives, mātauranga Māori, but also allowing us to come together because our collective intention is there. We're here for kia ora mai te Māori o te wai, is the restoring and the protection of our taonga for our future generations. And we're very privileged to have that relationship with our partners that are actually doing a really, really amazing job. So, tēnei te mi kia koutou katoa, kia ora.
Question time. While you're thinking of questions, let me just make one comment. Well, maybe two. One of them is you might have picked up from Trevor's presentation and the comments before how the holistic view of the world that is the centre of tikanga Māori, I suppose I would say, is quite important in that whilst we sometimes tend to compartmentalise the world into bits, and often the bits stay unrelated to the other bits. Now you look at one bit here and that's it, and you forget about all the rest. I think that's one of the challenges that this marriage between mātauranga Māori and science has to grapple with. That sort of, I guess, almost from a Māori point of view, resisting the temptation to just pocket-size everything. Put everything in a little pocket here, another little pocket there, and a little pocket there, when the world is a big place. And it does take all the various bits to bring it all together. And I think that's part of the sort of the ethos that Trevor and Fiona beforehand were alluding to, that it's the wider human picture that's as important as the individual bits that science and the rest of the community often focus in on. Anyway, question time.
Kia ora, Trevor. Thank you very much. I'm from the Manawatu, so our 2023 weather-wise has not been too bad. How do you, as a hapu and a trust, go forward with what's happened this year? Because I know a lot of these efforts are thinking in the hundreds of years in terms of setting up systems that will be for centuries. So with the way things are going, how can you start on that long journey to make changes and to accommodate for that?
Yeah, the awesome part there, mate. The question is that it started 20 years ago when the original Lake Trust was formed They set their tikanga out in terms of relationship building, but they set out in terms of we need to start acting in our own community about what we need to do, particularly with land use. It's the major thing is land use for us. And we're directly responsible with our fellow farmers too. But that's an intrinsic link in terms of dealing with the land use, and it's taken generations. It's taken generations to have that impact on the lake, so we understand that it's probably going to take triple that time for some return, that occurred. But that's why we needed to start 20 years ago, and thank God we did at the time. So land use is a key thing for us in terms of working with our partners, which is a really positive thing. And in terms of the balance between local government and our small hapu, we're all on the same page in terms of the land use. What's occurring in the Hawke's Bay at the moment is not appropriate going forward, and it's not going to set us up well in terms of going forward, particularly for our lake too, in terms of making a kai and food sustenance.
Cheers, Trevor, for that. Just in your time in Whakaki and now on the trust, have you noticed any changes in the younger generation coming through, and any lessons from that as to how you might be able to apply those behavioural changes more broadly? Cool,
excellent question there, Maxie. And I think that links on to in terms of our rangatei kōrero for part of. What I'm fortunate enough to represent is succession planning going forward, is that we're planting trees for us to not sit under. We're never going to sit under the shade of that tree. It's for our grandchildren and their grandchildren that are going to have the benefits of what we're trying to do today. So a key part of the trust, and it did roughly highlight in the videos, is that we need to involve our whānau more. And by involving our whānau and brings in our rangatei, that has to be one of our core things, is bringing in our youth, bringing in our next generation, and influencing that in a strong way, in a strong, positive way, that they have the ability to create their own future, hopefully set by us, and to continue that work on their own. That is a key thing for us, because we can't solve it within our generation. Probably my children, hopefully, but definitely after that, their children too will live in a better place. We'll leave the world in a better place than we found it, which is a key goal for us going forward. Excellent.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Nā mai tātou. As we always do, we never finish just with talking. We got to finish with a song. Tai timu tai pari, tai hoa e haere, kia mutu taku riri roi matai. Ka pine a koe au, ki te pine o te aroha, ki te pine e kore nei e Waikura e. Akati tēnā tātou.